Consider this newly remediated living room. The drywall is fresh, the structural framing is spotless, and cosmetically, the space appears perfect. Yet, for individuals suffering from environmentally acquired illnesses, moving back into a structurally pristine space like this can still trigger severe respiratory and neurological symptoms. The building is clean, but the environment remains toxic. The culprit is secondary contamination. During a mold event, active fungal growth releases invisible spores, fungal fragments, and toxic mycotoxins. These particles travel through the air and settle like an invisible layer of dust over every piece of furniture, from untreated couches and rugs, and circulates them directly back into the immediate breathing zone of the occupants. Spending tens of thousands of dollars to tear out and replace contaminated drywall is ineffective if the secondary contamination blanketing the home's contents is ignored. The health hazard remains completely intact. To understand why standard cleaning fails to remove this hazard, we have to look past the macroscopic room and examine the microscopic structure of a single woven cushion thread. Upholstered furniture suffers from the iceberg effect. The visible discoloration on a fabric surface is merely the flower, or the fruiting body of the mold. This diagram illustrates the true structural threat. The real damage is driven by hyphae, dense, microscopic root networks that weave themselves deep inside the highly porous fibers of the material. The standard homeowner reaction to discovering this threat is to scrub the fabric with household bleach or generic retail spot cleaners, but bleach is a chemical illusion. The oxidizer removes the color from the surface spore, making it temporarily invisible, while the liquid water base filters straight down through the weave, leaving the deep root system completely intact. Bleach is primarily water. Instead of neutralizing the threat, that high water content actively irrigates the deep hyphae, accelerating its growth within the core of the cushion. As these roots feed on the newly introduced moisture, they rapidly metabolize and off-gas microbial volatile organic compounds, or MVOCs. These gases are the direct source of the persistent musty odor emitting from compromised furniture. Alternative methods like ozone gas or commercial dry cleaning also fail here. They attempt to chemically alter the materials or use closed-loop solvents, rather than physically extracting the submicron fragments embedded deep in the weave. Applying retail chemical oxidizers to porous media does not remediate the biological threat. It actively cultivates the hyphae and masks an ongoing danger to human health. True recovery requires a clinical approach, the physical, mechanical extraction of submicron particles, rather than superficial chemical alteration. This process begins with Phase 1 of the Content Restoration Protocol, Micro-HEPA Extraction. In Quadrant 1 of our protocol grid, True-HEPA vacuums use multi-directional pressure to pull free-floating spores out of the weave, unlike standard vacuums that exhaust them back. In Quadrant 2, extraordinarily small nano-agents bypass the weave, safely neutralizing the hidden embedded roots from within. Phases 1 and 2 clinically strip away the loose surface spores and chemically neutralize the deep root system, all without introducing the dangerous water content that makes retail cleaners so destructive. Even after the biological threat is neutralized, the inert organic matter remains trapped inside the furniture's core. To extract this debris, the protocol advances to Phase 3, Thermal Dry Steam. We inject high-temperature vapor directly into the cushions. This delivers a sudden thermal shock that completely shatters any remaining bacterial or fungal biology on impact. This pressurized vapor simultaneously lifts deeply embedded soils and biocontaminants to the surface. By destroying the root structures and processing the fabric at high heat, the structural source of the MVOC off-gassing is permanently eliminated. The asset is then thoroughly dried and moved into the final step, Phase 4, the Sani-Shield Barrier. As shown in the final quadrant, we apply a non-toxic, invisible antimicrobial matrix over the fabric. This permanent barrier prevents future airborne mold spores from attaching or germinating on the surface. This 4-step engineering protocol completely resets a porous material to a hospital-grade standard. It effectively saves high-value custom furniture and investments from ending up in a landfill. While custom upholstery can be treated, not every item in a contaminated home should be saved. We rely on a strict clinical triage matrix to evaluate all household contents. Items are classified based entirely on material porosity and structural integrity. The irrecoverable category includes highly porous material that has sustained direct waterlogging, active colonization, or physical rot. These must be discarded safely. Like waterlogged mattresses, rotting archival paper, and porous wooden food prep items represent an immediate hazard and are thrown away. Conversely, the high recovery category features non-porous hard goods. Items composed of glass, metals, and solid woods naturally reject submicron penetration. The contamination sits entirely on the surface, making them completely salvageable. Precision electronics, like desktop computers, servers, and cell phones, represent a high-value edge case. Homeowners often mistakenly throw these away after a severe mold event. Because internal circuit boards and device housings are entirely non-porous, they can be saved. We use static-safe, dielectric compressed air to dislodge bound particles from the internal heat sinks and ventilation ports, fully restoring the equipment. Successful remediation is a scientific sorting problem driven by material porosity, not an emotional decision to discard all belongings. This blueprint reveals the structural envelope of a typical home. To protect decontaminated furniture, we have to pull back our perspective from individual assets and look at the entire building. Standalone retail air purifiers operate in isolation. They often mask environmental symptoms while failing to control whole house cross-contamination patterns. True protection requires the prevent phase. We have to install structurally integrated engineering to permanently repel pathogens across the entire footprint of the property. We integrate the Sani Air Duct Guardian into the central HVAC ductwork. Powered by active pure space-certified plasma, it works in reverse of passive HEPA filters. It projects a continuous purification matrix into every room, weaponizing the infrastructure to neutralize pathogens 24/7. Controlling airborne particulate is impossible without the final engineering variable, absolute structural moisture regulation. Modern spray foam attics can become massive moisture traps. When depressurization occurs, these sealed environments quietly breed mold across the entire roof deck and framing trusses. We resolve this vulnerability by deploying dedicated attic dehumidifiers and smart condensation-sensing ventilation systems to actively anticipate dew points and flush out humid air. This equipment is calibrated to a strict engineering target. Ambient humidity must remain between 30 and 50% to prevent biofilm formation. Afterward, visual inspections are meaningless. We demand post-remediation verification, independent third-party laboratory testing that legally verifies complete eradication of all spores and mycotoxins. True environmental health, especially for sensitive families, requires abandoning the illusion of cosmetic chemical cleaning. It demands a commitment to scientifically validated, comprehensive structural engineering.